So again, good evening, everyone. This is City Councilwoman Sandoval. I'm talking to you from my district office here on Centerview, right by Babcock and 410. And we are taking some extreme COVID precautions here. I am in one office. We have put the CPS representatives in a different office, and it's a big one. So there are two guys over there sitting at opposite ends of a very, very long table. And then we've got some additional tech support, and we have put them in different offices. So we're kind of on our own when we take off our masks, but if we have a technical difficulty, we put that puppy back on, and we go figure out what's happening. So I want to thank everyone for their cooperation on this phone call and being so compliant with the COVID precautions that we're taking here. All right, everyone, we are going to get rolling now. So welcome. We have nearly 500 of you joining us for this telephone town hall hosted by District 7, and we are here to discuss the CPS Energy proposed rate increase. Our call will go through approximately 6:50 p.m., and at 7, we will have a second call entirely in Spanish. We are also live streaming on Facebook, and the only additional thing you will get is to see our faces on Facebook. There's no additional information that will be provided on Facebook. So you will hear it all here on this telephone line. So let's get started. If you are on this call, it is because you know that CPS Energy is proposing a rate increase, and you probably have some questions about that, whether it's how would this affect your budget, or what's going to happen if we have another winter freeze. Will CPS Energy be ready for that? I want you to know that those are also my questions that I've been asking of CPS. I want to make sure that all of you have reliable and affordable electricity service. And I also want to make sure that it's provided in a way that's environmentally responsible. City Council plans to vote on this rate increase a week from tomorrow. That would be January 13th. At this point, I haven't made a firm commitment to vote yes or no. And I want to hear from you, our constituents, as I make that decision. I want to know what are your concerns and what are your questions. So to walk us through this discussion, I'm joined tonight by Mr. Rudy Garza. He is the interim CEO of CPS Energy, and also by Mr. Cory Kuchinsky, the CFO, as well as the treasurer of CPS Energy. They together will outline why CPS Energy is requesting this rate increase and how that rate increase will help improve operations and services for you. Once we get through that discussion, we will begin taking questions from the audience. So let me explain how you can ask a question if you are on the telephone town hall. Press 0 at any time, and our operators will take your questions. As we have time, we will allow some of you to actually ask the question aloud so that all 500 of us can hear what you're asking. But if we get similar questions, I may just go ahead and pose them to Rudy and Cory myself. So again, press 0 at any time to ask your question. You will not miss out on the call because the hold music will be us on this conversation. All right, I've been told that we have now over 900 people on our call, so I promise you not everybody will get to ask their question individually, but we will definitely take some questions. So again, this is our CPS Town Hall. We've got Rudy and Cory here. I will interrupt occasionally to remind people how to ask questions, and if any urgent question comes up that I think you can address, I'll go ahead and pose it at that time. So at this point, thank you all for your patience and for being COVID ready. I'm going to turn this over to Mr. Rudy Garza at this time. Thank you, Rudy.
Well, thank you, Councilwoman Sandoval. You have always been a good partner. You have been very much focused on accountability with CPS Energy, and we appreciate your partnership and certainly your engagement with us. I want to thank all 1,000 or more at this point of the residents of District 7. District 7 has a very long and proud history of service to the city of San Antonio over the years, and I just want to thank you for being with us tonight. We have done a number of these teletown halls at CPS Energy ourselves. We've done a couple now on this rate request, and so we always look forward to every opportunity we can get to get in front of our community, get in front of our customers, and explain kind of where we are as an organization at CPS Energy and where we're heading. More importantly, I want to take a moment before I turn it over to Cory Kuchinsky, who's my CFO at CPS Energy, to walk you through the specifics of this request. But I can tell you that we have been really looking at our financials and the impacts of just the 8 years that it's been since we have come to the city of San Antonio asking for consideration for a rate increase. 8 years is a long time. In that time, our community's grown exponentially, by double-digit percentages over those years. Costs have gone up. We have worked real hard to manage our costs. Over that time period, we've worked to save close to over $900 million through various ways, operationally, through fuel contracts, through all the ways that we're required to spend your rate dollars to provide service. We've cut out a lot of costs over that time period, but we're getting to the point now where growth has gotten to such that we're here asking for rate requests. Initially, we started at a 10% number. That was a very forward-looking number over the next 10 years. Had some major investments that we know we're going to have to make. And again, Cory will talk about the buckets of investment that are covered in this rate request. Over that time, we've worked hard with our owners, our regulator, the city of San Antonio, to go from 10% down to 3.85%, which we believe is a modest investment that we're asking the community to make in CPS Energy in what is critical infrastructure. It's infrastructure that you own. What we're asking for will be a direct investment in the service that we're providing to our customers. And so this 3.85% is also accompanied with an additional 0.8% to cover a portion of the fuel costs that we saw, which was a huge cost during the February winter Uri event. That we have paid that we believe is reasonable, and or we've settled with companies who were selling us gas during that week that we have to deal with at this time. And so together those are two components of what we're asking for. Because of where we know the community is with the pandemic and with Winter Storm and all the impacts that both we and the entire city of San Antonio has seen over the last 2 years, we believe that 3.85% is a modest but reasonable request that will get us on a better financial footing, allow us to do the work that we need to do over the next couple of years to firm up some decisions we need to make on our generation portfolio going forward. And we've committed to Anna and to all the council members that over the next 12 months, we're going to be having serious conversations to get on a path on what the future of our generation mix looks like, deal with the decision on Spruce 1 and Spruce 2 units, and then move into the future together as a community. So these conversations are never easy. The timing is never right, but we would like to move forward thoughtfully with this request that again will speak to the type of service and the level of service that we know our community expects out of us at CPS Energy. We know that February was a really difficult event for our community, for the entire state of Texas. We know that we've got to do better. We've done a lot of things to be more prepared for this winter season, and I can tell you that we are more prepared. This winter season will go better than the last one because of all the things that we've done through the Committee on Emergency Preparedness that Mayor Nurnberg appointed. We have completed those action items, and we're good to go for this winter. So with that, I'm going to stop there, and I'm going to turn it over to my colleague, Cory Kuchinsky, who will walk us through the specifics of our request.
Great, thank you, Rudy, and appreciate the introduction, Councilwoman, as well. Hope everyone's doing well tonight. So I will be brief and try and allow most of the time for questions. As Rudy mentioned, there are two components to this rate request. And the first component that Rudy mentioned was this 3.85% base rate increase. The key components, one of the things Rudy also mentioned was it's been 8 years since we've had a rate request. And the big driver that Rudy talked about, that $900 million in savings that we've been able to identify over the last decade, has really enabled that. And if you think about it, that was a long time to not change the actual price of the product which we serve. But as Rudy's point was, costs are going up, and we have to cover some of those, a lot of growth. So that rate request is about $73 million in total revenue on top of the $2.9 billion total revenue that we anticipate. One of the key things to talk about from that perspective is we are also recommending, as part of this request, to offset that bill impact for customers who qualify for our affordability discount program. That's an income qualifying program. And in the spirit of understanding that there's a broader conversation around equity that we want to have with our community, with the council, with the rate advisory committee, this was kind of our short-term immediate effort. Plus, we're expanding the program by about 14,000 customers. The four key buckets that the investments are going to go towards are really related to infrastructure, resiliency, and I'll talk about what that means, technology, growth, and investment in people. When you think about infrastructure resiliency, you think about the winter storm, you think about how we respond to extreme weather events. This is incremental investment for improved experiences in terms of controlling outages. If we do have to go through rolling outages, it's investment in our freeze protection at power plants, and making sure that they're ready for extreme weather that isn't typical in Texas. In terms of technology, a lot has changed over the last decade or so. And as our technology is aging, there's a required investment to keep up with our technology infrastructure, manage our customer interfaces, things of that nature. There's also been a huge increase in the risks associated with cybersecurity. There's investments needed now that weren't needed 8 years ago. That's critically important. And as Rudy talked about growth, we continue to invest and accommodate new construction occurring in our communities. Replacing additional poles, wires, meters, all the typical infrastructure you expect. And the last part is investing in people. We are down about 300-400 people from where we were 8 years ago. Now, that's meaningful, but that's a little too low for the growth that we've experienced over the last 8 years. So part of this rate request, incremental investment, is going towards filling the nearly 400 vacant positions that we have at CPS Energy. It's also going towards raising our minimum wage to $18 an hour, which we think is important, for our local residents. So that's kind of the quick Cliff Notes version of what the base rate increase is going to go towards from an incremental perspective. The other part that Rudy mentioned was in regards to the Winter Storm Uri fuel costs. And we've heard a lot of headlines in the news about this $1 billion number. And that is the cost of just the fuel that we were billed. We didn't pay that full $1 billion. We are disputing nearly $590 million of that currently in the courts. But what we have done, and we brought in independent third parties, was say that of that $1 billion, about $418 million of that has been vetted and while high, is still legitimate. And so our recommendation, though, is to recover that from our customers over an extended period of time. So that recovery would be, we recommend, over 25 years. What we didn't want to do was recover that all at once. And just to size that $418 million, that's about half of what our typical annual budget in fuel is. So it's pretty significant. And this concept of spreading it out over time isn't uncommon. But again, we're only going to do it for the recommended amount. So that bill impact for customers is $1.26 per month. So that's a lot smaller than what you're seeing from other utilities who experience high costs. And so in combination, the bill impact from the base rate increase is about $3.84. The bill impact from the fuel cost is about $1.26. And so what we're saying is about $5.10 is what an average residential combined electric and gas customer can expect from this rate request. Now, as I mentioned earlier, that's for folks who are not on the affordability discount program. For those that are on the affordability discount program, the only components that would be part of this rate request would be the $1.26. So we are trying to make it as modest an impact as possible for those that are most in need. And so those are probably the key elements of our request. I know we're going to have a lot of other questions, I think, on various slicing and dicing of different customers. But I'll pause there and see if there's any more detail that Rudy you want to add before we go to questions.
Two things I want to add, or a couple items. Number one, we have two committees, citizen committees, that give input to our board. Both of those committees, the Rate Advisory Committee and the Citizens Advisory Committee, have weighed in on their opinion of our request. Both, I'm thankful that both have supported our request of the city for both of these items, and they will be at our board on Monday when our board will take this up to provide their perspective directly to the board members. The chairmen and women of those organizations will be there on Monday. Councilwoman Sandoval asked me to give a little more context about generation planning. CPS Energy is the fourth largest generator in the state of Texas. We serve a growing community. We've got roughly 5,000 megawatts of traditional plants. We own a portion of a nuclear plant close south of Houston. We generate power through natural gas power plants and our one coal unit. We shut our older Dealey coal unit down a few years ago, 15 years ahead of schedule, and now we're having a conversation about what to do about the newer Spruce units, Spruce 1 and Spruce 2. When we think about generation planning, we think about what combination of renewables that are intermittent, that they're there when the sun is shining and the wind is blowing, they're not when it's not. So how do we, and we're a very, very robust user of renewables. We're the number one purchaser of solar power in the state of Texas, and we're in the top 2 or 3 in wind. And we're about to sign contracts for some additional solar. But how much of what we call firm capacity, the traditional natural gas plants, coal plants that you can nuclear that you can turn off and on when you need them. There's a combination of renewables and firming capacity that we need to ensure reliable power for San Antonio. And so we're going to undertake a conversation about what the right mix is, and more importantly, for environmental purposes, we have a program that the city has, which we have supported, called our Climate Action and Adaptation Plan. Part of that is a commitment that we're gonna deal with our Spruce units and the emissions associated with that. So our board is gonna engage in a community conversation over the next 12 months to make those decisions, so we can thoughtfully move forward and get beyond this conversation. So I did want to come back. Spruce. My reference to Spruce is our remaining 2 coal units that we're talking about into the future.
And Rudy, since we'll probably mentioned this a couple of times, since we may not answer every question, we do have our website out there for folks to know that has rate information, and on there it has the bill estimator, so people can estimate what the bill impact may look like relative to your own unique usage, and that's at cpsenergy.com/ratecase. And we can mention that a few more times throughout the rest of the time.
Thanks, Cory. All right, back to you, Councilwoman.
I'm going to jump in here. Thank you both very, very much for your words right now. Regarding that online calculator, that sounds like a great tool. If for those of you who are watching the Facebook Live, we will go ahead and put that link. And I know sometimes we say, oh, the website's sanantonio.gov, and it's a little bit hard to locate. So let us find that for you, and then we'll post it in a few minutes. So we have our first live question coming up. We've got a Mr. Oscar Reyes on the line. So Oscar, come on, tell us where you're calling from, and then go ahead and ask your question. Thank you, Oscar.
Yes, ma'am. I am from the Inspiration Hills area, and I actually have two short questions, right? The first question is, how much total revenue will the rate increase provide?
$73 million is how much this rate increase will provide for our operations.
Is that on an annual basis?
On an annual basis, yes, ma'am.
Okay, all right. And then the second question is, and you don't have to answer it if you don't want to, but I'm just wondering, with everything that happened, does CPS still plan to provide bonuses to the executives, especially since, they could have or maybe should have, not failed the way they did in general?
Yes, sir. It's a great question, and I'll be glad to answer it. We're going to have to look at our overall compensation at CPS Energy. We know that our bonus program has been kind of a lightning rod in the past. We're legally obligated to pay a bonus that we kind of held on, not a bonus, we call it our incentive program, but the community refers to it as our bonus program. And it's not just executives. All of our employees that are not wage scale employees participate in that incentive program. So it does impact the front line too. We're legally obligated to pay the incentive from 2019, but we have agreed that we're going to move away from EIP going forward. That we haven't paid any bonuses out for the last couple of years, but we're going to restructure our compensation system plan to make sure that it reflects what we should be, what we are as a publicly owned utility, and allows us to be competitive. We have lost a lot of talent. We've lost executive talent. We've lost engineers. We've lost frontline talent to other utilities around us, some public, some private, because we've kind of gotten behind in what our overall compensation system looks like. So one of the things that we're doing over the next year is to really look at our compensation plan. I got to have employees to operate our system, so we got to make sure CPS Energy is hiring the best and brightest people that we can find to come to work for us. But we got to do it in a different way, and so we've agreed with the city that we'll pay out to 2019, which we're legally obligated to do so, and then we'll look at our compensation going forward to make the necessary adjustments.
Okay, thank you so much.
Yes, sir.
Oscar, thank you very much for your question. And for anybody else who is out there, remember to just press 0 for 0. 9 is at the end. We'll save that for later. Press 0 to ask your question, and you'll be connected to our operator right away. As we're waiting for those questions to come in, also for those of you watching on Facebook Live, you may type in your question, and our team will also bring that over to us. For right now, Mr. Garza and Kuchinsky, what I'd like to pose to you is, what immediate improvements might your customers see if this is approved? Could you give a couple of examples of something that we'll see on the ground?
Sure. Well, there's a lot of regulatory requirements that are coming out of Austin on the amount of weatherization that we have to do for our power plants. So the good majority of this is investment that we know that we're going to be regulatory required to make over the next couple of years. We think that number is going to be somewhere in the neighborhood of $31 million, but it'll make our system more resilient. The other thing that we're talking about doing is the technology that we have in our wire system to allow us to break up our system in a way that gives us more flexibility if we do find ourselves in a controlled outage situation. The feedback I've gotten since February has been, Rudy, we know that it was cold. We know that the entire state was blanketed in ice and snow. We're not upset that our power was out. We were upset that it was out for 3 or 4 days. And I understand that. They should be upset that it was out that long. The changes that we made to our system today and that we're going to continue to invest in will allow us to truly rotate outages if we do find ourselves in that situation in a way that customers will see 15 minutes off and then, some amount of time on, 30 minutes, 45 minutes, an hour, maybe multiple hours. But to do that, we've got to invest in technology, smart devices that we can open and close and break our circuits up throughout the city to give us a lot more flexibility, to be much more equitable across the service territory. It'll allow us to hire, energy advisors and technicians and operators to ensure that our reliability is maintained, because the bigger our gap gets in the amount of employees we need to run our system versus what we have, that starts to impact reliability over the in the coming years. And so our goal is to maintain our service levels, improve our service levels, trim more trees, hire the people we need, and that'll keep us on the right track to provide San Antonio and the entire Bexar County region with the service that they expect out of CPS Energy. We know we have to do a better job. We know we have to be more accountable. We know we have to be more transparent. And we are a publicly owned utility, and our intention is to act like it.
Okay, great. We've got another question, and this one I'll just go ahead and share this one. Well, actually, I'm going to give you two questions. One is, you talked about resiliency right now, about something that can make us more resilient. And then we've always known CPS to have a tagline of reliability, which is why the winter storm was such a surprise to all of us. But I think it's important for our listeners to understand that those are actually different things, right? And how you prepare for them is different. So if you could just speak to that for a bit, and then take into account this question, which is the state contributing to the weatherization of our grid? And are we still at this point separated from the national grid?
Very good questions. I love conversing with an MIT-educated council member because she asks great questions. So yes, there's a difference between reliability and resiliency, and let me explain the two. Reliability is just the day-to-day, blue sky operation of our system, and CPS Energy is one of the most reliable utilities in the country. On average, our customers see less than an hour of outages a year, and we're proud of our reliability. Reliability is our ability to continuously serve our customers, in a way that you don't see many outages under normal circumstances. Resiliency is a different concept. Resiliency means when you have that major event, when you have that snowstorm, when you have a really bad rain or some type of high winds, our ability to recover from an event of that nature, we have to be able to recover more quickly, more efficiently, so that you don't see that multiple day event. So that's really the difference between reliability and resiliency. Resiliency is the ability to recover from these extraordinary events that unfortunately we expect to happen more frequently in the coming years. Now, to your question about the state legislature did pass a number of pieces of legislation that are putting new requirements, more stringent requirements on power generators across the state of Texas. I've always said I can control what we do, and so the weatherization that we've done, I think, puts us in a much better position. I really didn't have insight in the past to what other generators across the state of Texas are doing. We are an interconnected grid. At least about 85% of the state of Texas is connected. We benefit. We buy power from other areas when we need it. We sell power to the system when we have excess and they need it. That money comes back to San Antonio, lowers the amount of revenue we have to ask our own customers for. So there are benefits to being interconnected. So yes, the state has actually done inspections on all generators across the state to ensure that what the state requires of us as generators to weatherize has been done. So now I can tell you I feel a lot better than I used to feel because of that inspection process, and that's new. This is the first year that we've actually had to go through an inspection process with ERCOT, and I can tell you CPS Energy fared very well in that inspection. In terms of the interconnection with the national grid, ERCOT is looking at developing some additional interconnections that will allow us to bring more power into the state from other areas. It is still going to be limited. So have we done a full-scale interconnection with the eastern and western grids? No. But they are looking at bringing in some additional power beyond what our current capability is. So that we believe is a step in the right direction.
Well, thank you, Rudy, and I want to thank Diana for posing that question. Again, if you have a question, press 0, and the operator will take your question. We have another one that's come in from Karen. I'll go ahead and ask that one. How does CPS plan to be off of coal completely by 2030?
Well, so I'll say this. Our commitment to CAP certainly makes, we will need to make a decision on Spruce 1. We got about $150 million worth of environmental equipment we would have to invest in if we're going to keep running Spruce 1. So I think the decision point on Spruce 1 is probably a little clear for us in terms of when we need to shut down Spruce 1 and do something different. Go build more renewables, buy gas power from another provider, build it ourselves, whatever we're going to do there. Spruce 1 is the immediate decision point. Spruce 2, the commitment to CAP always looked at a closing of Spruce 2 by 2040. We're looking at, can we bring that date up? I know Councilwoman Sandoval and a number of council members have asked us to look at that. We are looking at that. There are things we can do with our second Spruce unit, such as repowering to natural gas, that are economical and will allow us to continue to reliably serve our community. But we're going to look at the entirety of our generation portfolio. We've got a very diverse generation portfolio at CPS Energy. It's served our community well. It's allowed us to keep our rates affordable for our customers, allowed us to continue to serve our customers reliably. So we're going to look at the entirety of our portfolio, including the Spruce units, and we're going to come make some decisions over the next 12 months about what the right mix looks like, and certainly make some decisions on the dates to cease our coal operations long term and do something different. So those decisions are going to be made over the next 12 months. That is not a decision that Rudy Garza, as the interim CEO, makes. That we've got to present our board with community feedback, with input, with data, and our board ultimately will make that decision. And our board chair has been committed, publicly to them doing that.
Thank you, Rudy. So again, if you want to ask a question, press 0. So I think I'm going to take that answer and dissect it a little bit, Rudy, if you don't mind. So you separated out the 2 coal plants that are still in operation. You call one of them Spruce 1, and the other one is called Spruce 2. I think it's after a tree that you named those at some point, right? Not a person.
Well, J.K. Spruce was a general manager of CPS Energy once upon a time. So most of our facilities are named after leaders of the company.
So you said one of them had a much more clear-cut date than the other one, based on how old it is and the environmental improvements that it would need just to be compliant, regulatory. So could you kind of narrow down what that date might be?
Well, we've always said, as part of the CAP conversations, 2028 was always that decision point for Spruce 1. So we would have to make that $150 million or whatever it is, Cory, investment in Spruce 1 to keep it operational either as a natural gas or a coal plant. We're going to have to add some environmental equipment to Spruce 1 to make it viable over the long term. So I think the CAP, whatever analysis that CAP has run, had a closure date for Spruce 1 of 2028. Now, what do you do with it? Do you close it outright? Do you convert it to natural gas? I think those are the conversations we're going to have. But I think the reality of Spruce 1 is a little different than Spruce 2, and we've still got, as we've talked about before, there's debt on the books today that we will have to write off for both of those units, whatever we do with them. That we will have to factor in to the conversation. But again, as we move into the next 12-month conversation, I think we'll be ready to have a thoughtful conversation about what both the operational and the financial impacts of these decisions are going to be.
Thank you, Rudy. I've also had some constituents ask me about something that's not quite as big as shutting down a coal plant, but as simple but as important as utility poles. So could you, and I know I asked you that at one of our meetings of the council, could you please talk a little bit to how those decisions are made and how this rate increase might affect that? So in certain parts of the community, we've seen poles going underground, the lines going underground, and that's convenient. It looks a lot better. But in other parts of the community, we see not just poles in the sidewalk, but we see old poles holding up, or new poles holding up old poles, and they're both in the sidewalk, or something like that. You've seen those angled poles.
Yes,
so is that something that can be addressed with this rate increase? What can we expect from you?
Well, certainly all you got to do is look at the age of the homes in our community, and the infrastructure underneath them, behind them, above them, around them is probably about the same age. We've probably got 100,000 poles in our system, Councilwoman, that need replacing, today. And certainly, if we get a little bit of financial relief to stabilize our finances, we can continue driving to get those those that are the oldest replaced, and continue making progress to get where we need to be. If the rate increase is not successful, what ends up happening is, you replace them when they fail, because you got to take the money and spend it on the regulatory stuff that I mentioned earlier, the weatherization of our power plants, the $31 million that we're going to have to do whether we get this rate increase or not. That takes away from tree trimming and pole replacements and the replacing of aging infrastructure. It allows us to do less of that. So the plan we brought forward really allows us to keep the eye on both of those balls. We make the investments that we're obligated to make, by our state regulators, and we can continue replacing old infrastructure that we know that we need to replace. Every year, we've been trying to set aside $20–30 million a year to take an area of town that may have older overhead infrastructure and bury those lines, because maybe there's a lot of trees in the area, or there's some reason why overhead infrastructure creates a challenge. And $20–30 million really only may give us enough to do one neighborhood. But, we do one neighborhood or portions of multiple neighborhoods, in a year, and that improves reliability, for everybody in that neighborhood. And we've got a list of areas that we know we need to consider. But we started that process of overhead and underground conversions. I'm proud of the fact that we're trying to be thoughtful about that. And so it's kind of a combination of both. There's some areas where undergrounding makes perfect sense. There are other areas we just need to, invest in new infrastructure that may continue to be overhead, but replacing old poles makes the whole system more reliable. And we've got to do some of both.
Thank you, Rudy, for that answer. So it's about 6:42 right now. We're going to be on for 8 to 10 more minutes. So if you have a question, press 0 and that'll come through. Again, you are joining Mr. Rudy Garza and Mr. Cory Kuchinsky, both of CPS Energy, to talk about the proposed rate increase that Council will be voting on this coming Thursday. So not tomorrow, but a week from tomorrow. If listeners or Facebook viewers come up with additional questions or have additional concerns that they want to send to us, please send those to my office at district7@sanantonio.gov, or you can also call us at 207-0870.
Councilwoman, if I might, can I put a plug in for our assistance programs? Right now, the city of San Antonio has been gracious enough to give us an allocation of ARPA funding to help customers who are behind on their bills. If you qualify for our affordability discount program, or you're within, that income level, which is about 125% of the federal poverty guidelines, and even if you don't know, if you'll pick up the phone and call us at 210-353-2222, any one of our excellent energy advisors can help you figure out if you're qualified and get you on assistance program that you need. If if you haven't updated contact information in a while, during those situations where we may have an emergency, it's really, really important for us to know what number you want us to reach out to you on during an emergency. We'll send out text messages, emails, we'll send out auto, calls, voicemail calls to people, letting you know that there's something going on in our system that you need to be aware of. So giving us a good contact number is hugely, hugely important. So we, and if you just need a little more time to pay your bills, call us. Let us help you. We'll put you on a payment plan that works for you, so that you don't get any further behind.
Great. Thank you, Rudy, for reminding people of that. Sometimes we forget that help is just a phone call away. A couple more questions that have come up, and they actually have to do with the national level. So one of them is Miss Susan, you know what, I can't read that last name. I think it's misspelled. But Susan, thank you very much for listening. She is asking, what is restricting us from being on the national grid? And then another question we have from Paul. Thank you for listening on the telephone town hall. And he's asking, why are we asking for money from our customers instead of going to the federal government? And Paul, I totally understand that we had what was practically a natural disaster, right? I think it may have actually been declared as such. So why are we going to the customers instead of the government? So thank you.
Sure. So I'll start. The decision on whether or not ERCOT connects to the national grid, either the eastern or western, grid, that's a state level decision. The primary reason, I'm just going to put it out there, is political. When we connect, when we make, hard connections to other transmission systems, that opens the state of Texas up to federal regulation through the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission. Right now, we are not, for reliability purposes, we're not regulated by FERC. The minute we interconnect, it regulates us, at the federal level, and the state of Texas obviously always fancies itself as its own country to a certain degree, in a lot of ways, and so there's been a huge reluctance at the state level for us to voluntarily bring ourselves under additional federal regulation. So that's the primary driver of why ERCOT still remains not fully connected to those grids. And as for why we're asking our customers, utilities, we asked the state of Texas for financial relief from Winter Storm Uri, and they didn't pass any bills during the legislative session to give utility companies relief. At the federal level, the dollars flow through not utilities, so typically there are not appropriations made to the utility industry because we have ratepayers, and so those dollars flow through the cities and the counties and other governmental entities. That's, we had to go to the city to ask for ARPA funding to help offset the past due balances for our customers. And so there's just not a lot of state or federal money available to help offset what are additional costs that we're incurring right now. Again, it's been 8 years. Everything has gone up. Right now we serve a new customer at today's prices, but we're only receiving, 70 cents on the dollar for what, it actually costs us to serve in revenue. So there are just some gaps in today's cost versus 8-year-old rates that we've got to reconcile to get us on better financial footing across the board and move us forward so that we're able to better serve our community. As a utility, the only place we have to go is our customers, for revenue. So I understand your question. It's a good one, but there are certainly limitations for options on where we can go for revenue to provide service to our customers.
So I will just chime in that some federal funding has been awarded to CPS through the city, and that was specifically around what do you call it when people
utility assistance? Yes, ma'am.
Right, it was for utility assistance. As we saw, COVID has affected a lot of people's ability to pay their bills, and that is also one of the challenges that you have been experiencing, CPS, in the past couple of years. So with that federal funding, it was passed. Some of it went to SAWS, and some of it also went to CPS. So we are at 6:49, so I'm going to wrap up just so that the team can take a little bit of a break before we start our 7 o'clock call. And I want to thank you, all of those who are on the line with us or who joined us at this time. If you have any final questions, you can record it for us by pressing 9 at the end of this call. You can also contact our office. The phone number here is 210-207-0870. That's the District 7 City Council office of yours truly, Ana Sandoval, here on Centerview at Babcock and 410. We are still operating out of here, but at a minimum staffing level because of COVID concerns. You can also email us at district7@sanantonio.gov. And for those of you who may have had some challenges getting a COVID test recently, I want to announce that the city will be opening up 3 new testing locations with community labs, so you will be able to get your tests right away. Those locations are at Alamo Community College's district headquarters, close to downtown. We're also going to have a mega site at Palo Alto, and there's one more. All of that is on the city's website, or you can call our office or 311 to find out more. Again, thank you very much, Mr. Rudy Garza and Mr. Cory Kuchinsky, for your time and answering those questions. And thank you to all those residents who have been engaged in this process. We will see you next time.
Thank you, Councilwoman.